guys, Dolly here. Welcome back to Gypsy Rose Papery. Today we're going to do a tutorial on shaker envelopes. If you're not sure what I mean by shaker envelope, I will put a little picture somewhere. It'll pop up, or maybe like a little video for you to see the ones that I made for the Wicked Grimoire TN, which is a video back, or maybe two by the time you see this. And so just a disclaimer that for my own mental well-being, because I am terrible at measuring and making things precise when it comes to measurements, I'm using my envelope punch board just to make my life easier. Obviously, if you don't have one of these, you can still join in. The premise behind the actual shaker part is the same whether you hand cut your envelopes or whether you use the punch board. Just a little side note, I love this thing and I would recommend you getting it if it's something that you were looking into getting, because it does make your life a lot easier. And if you're someone who makes envelopes a lot, then there's no way you can go wrong, and you can use all different kinds of paper to make envelopes with this little doohickey right here. So yes, let's go through supplies. You may or may not want to use the envelope punch board. That's for supply. The next supply is vellum, because we want the front of the envelope, or the face of the envelope, kind of where you would write your address and all that, to be see-through, because we want to be able to see all the glittery shaky things inside the envelope. The other paper you would want is thick paper for the inside part of the shaker, because some of the bits or the glitter is bigger. It's more like a sequin type, and vellum is also kind of wobbly, so it's just for structure really, and just as a nice backing to your envelope that you can see along with the glittery parts. But I just have some plain black cardstock. I also have some scraps. These are Tim Holtz. I've got some digis from Tsunami Rose. I have my mushroom cards, and I have some music paper that's kind of on the thick side. And to add to the supplies list, I completely forgot, you'll also need your cutting board, and then assorted glitters. So I'll be back and we can start kind of actually putting it all together. So the first thing you are going to want to do is obviously cut your vellum to size. For those of you that want to know what supplies I use, I just buy this vellum on Amazon. And for those of you following on the punch board, I always like to use the A2 size, which is the 8 1/4 size of paper. So you'll have to cut your paper to 8 1/4. And now that I'm seeing this cutter, it's not going to cut it. We're going to use my other medium size. This one has an extension, oops, that allows for measuring. For those of you not using the punch board, 8 1/4 is the size square that we want to make the paper. So right there, and then this way, and I would say make a few of these at a time. So moving all this excess stuff to the side, we're going to take our envelope punch board, and since this is a bigger square, you're going to want to, oops, pull up the extender and your little scorer, and I hope I'm in frame. And so when you look at the guide, A2 with 8 1/4 inch paper, your punch guide is going to be at 3 5/8. So your little punch guide, for those of you that are new to this, or for those of you that were interested in just seeing what this does. We're gonna do 2 sheets at a time to save time. Your little punch guide is here, and it'll tell you how far out to extend your paper to. So this one is saying that for this size paper, you should do 3 5/8, which is right there. And so the first thing you're gonna do is punch it. And then there's 2 score guides. There's a B, this is the B, and this is the A. You're gonna do the A. And then you're gonna line up the line that you just scored with the line on the punch board. And you can kind of feel it when it's right. And then you punch again. You're gonna score again. And then again. And you're gonna keep doing that till you've done all 4 sides. And one last score. And you have your basic envelope shape. And so your other option, and this is also preference, I prefer a rounded corner. Your little punch envelope thing has a little corner rounder right here. And so just gonna round these corners. Okay, and so very quickly I'm gonna do the rest of these and come right back. So now we have all our envelopes corner punched and all set to go. You want to cut a square of paper to the size, to the dimensions of the inside of your envelope. So this envelope size is, it's a weird size. It's an A2 as far as stationery goes. Those are the dimensions you're going to want to keep in mind when you are cutting this guy, because you're going to want to cut where it's going to fit on the inside. Not too snugly, because you want to give yourself room for when you fold these down. It's going to be flush. So go grab your scrap paper, cut the same size out of all your scrap paper, and then we can start the assembly part when we come back. Okay, so we've got all our pieces cut to size. You know, design preference would be yours. If you wanted to distress around the edges, you could. Just to keep it simple and short, I'm not going to do that. And so my preference is to sew. What I suggest though first is you just kind of glue the edges. So, and not all sides. You're going to want to leave the top side open, because that's where you're going to pour the glitter. And so just to keep it in place, and I hope I'm in frame here, but I kind of just want to, just as a securement, so I'm not worried about using a very kind of fancy glue, because like I said, I'm going to sew around. For those of you that are not sewing or prefer not to sew, I would suggest using a stronger glue like Fabri-Tac, only because you're not going to want it to pop open or anything like that when you have your shaker stuff in there. And this is also personal preference, but my preference is to kind of score the edges before I go ahead and start gluing and all that, because this is going to be kind of hard to score once you have your paper and everything inside and your shaker bits. For those of you that are sewing, you can kind of start to just get the paper in and secure the paper in. For those of you that are gluing, I can glue one just so that you can see. You're going to want to keep, especially with Fabri-Tac, you're going to want to keep the the layer of glue very kind of thin. If it helps, you can kind of smooth the glue all the way around with your finger. So you just want to secure, and you're going to want this to dry, for those of you that are gluing, really well before you try and put anything inside of here. And so if you are sewing, you're going to sew them before it's a tedious process, but usually I have all my stuff like close by. So basically you're going to want to sew around this, have your glitter handy at the sewing machine, and then sew the top seam. But since where I'm at is not where my sewing machine is at, I'm going to sew first, show you the glitter process, and then come back and show you the finished. Okay, and I'm back, and so these are all sewn around 3 sides of the inside of the envelope, and the top is open. And then for our glued one, you actually don't really even need a brush, a paintbrush like I was thinking about. Everybody has like cardstock type scraps around. So if you just put a little bit of glue, which I'll show you, and like ran it along the edge there, it should seal it perfectly fine. So your next step is actual glitter, which is the fun part. So this is, I shouldn't have a favorite glitter, but I do. This is jumbo glitter, and specifically this color, which is not really a color, it's like an iridescent, and it looks all different colors depending on the light. And the reason I like this is because it's versatile. You don't need to get a million different kinds of glitter, and so I don't like using the shaker. I think it's just messy, and it's already messy, as you can see. And I think I got this at Joann's, but you're just gonna sprinkle a little bit. A little goes a long way. So I would say before going overboard, just put a little bit in and see what it looks like. So I think that's a good amount. And since this is like a nature type theme, I have some, these are called Spangle. This Spangle mix is from Walmart, and you get like a whole bag. I want to put, I don't know if these would really go in there. I don't think so, but anywho. So like, for example, the Spangle mix comes with like butterflies, and this purple butterfly is pretty. This pink one. You can add this big piece. You have to kind of hold yourself back because you can't, just like with the embossing, it's easier to go overboard because it's so pretty and you want to just put all kinds of glittery bits in here. But I think I'm just gonna look for a leaf and maybe call that a day. So let's put these in. And we're going to use our little scrap. And just put like a nice layer of glue at the end like this. And make sure all your glitter is down at the bottom before you try and do this. And then you can just run the glue around the edge of your paper, and you can add more if you need to. Just be mindful of how far down you're going. And so then just gently kind of run your edge. So we'll let the glue one dry, and then we'll move on to this one. With the music paper, I think I'm just gonna add this glitter because I think I just like something simple for this one. that's good. And let's see if we can maybe add one of these big leaves. And let's see what we've got in this Spangle mix. Stars are pretty. And a moon. I'm going to take that leaf out. I think I'm going to make this a celestial type. Maybe a little leaf. So I'm going to pull out this leaf because I think it would go better with the one with the birds. And so just be careful you set this while you do your others, because on that one I'm just going to sew the top. I think that's good. And then for this one I like the green and the bird. So I'm going to use some of my glitter here. And then some of these leaves. And I think that's good for that. I'm gonna go and sew these. And I'll be right back. Okay, so they're all finished. So this is the one with just the glue, no sewing. And I think it sealed pretty well. I'm not seeing anything kind of leak out, but I love how it came out with the little butterflies all around. And this one is just the music paper. And this one has the bird, and they're just so much fun to shake. I guess that's why they call them shakers, but they're really like super fun. So here, this is something I wanted to show you. So with the bigger bits, less is more, because you see how they kind of bunch up on each other and then they don't really move. So let's see if I can get some of these loose like that. Yeah, but once they bunch up together they won't move as much, so just something to keep in mind. And this is cool too with the big leaf. But see how they bunched up there. So less is more with the bigger pieces, but the jumbo glitter looks really good in here. So anywho, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you make these, I'd love for you to tag me on Instagram. It's at Gypsy Rose Papery. And I hope you guys have a great afternoon, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!